Hello, welcome to the Math Vlog. Today, in this series, we're in a series of vlogs discussing word problems. Well, story problems, if you will, and how to solve those. We're going to discuss actual problems, and the problems we're focusing on are systems of equations, where we have two equations with two unknowns. That's the next two vlogs. But before we get into actual solving problems, this vlog is meant to give you a preview of what to expect, to look at answers that are possible and answers that aren't possible. And these three examples give you an idea of how that works. We have to understand that when we solve word problems, we need to know if the answer we found fits the question we have. We have to develop a gut understanding. Sometimes it's a problem for students. It's hard to know if it's right or wrong. You have to think, okay, does my answer, is it possible for what I'm looking for? So these are three examples we have. And each example, we're going to be looking for the number that doesn't fit, that could not possibly be an answer for the question. A. Suppose the problem is, okay, we're discussing cars on a car dealer's lot, on a dealership. How many cars could there be on their lot? So if I could think of how many cars they may sell on their lot, what numbers here, meaning A, B, C, or D, is not possible? Well, I'll give you a minute to think about this. But if we look at it together, let's look at letter A, 0 cars. It's possible the car dealership sold all their cars and they have 0 cars left. That's a possible answer. 45 cars. That's for sure that's possible. Could they have 1 car left that's been there for a while? Yeah. Now look at D. 6.5 cars. I don't think so. It would be impossible to try to see them to sell a half of a car. D is what we call a not reasonable answer. If you had this problem and found 6.5 for the number of cars, you should have a gut feeling that this possibly isn't the right answer. Okay, so you get the idea what we're doing now? Let's go to example B. It's important to figure out why. When you have an answer, look at the answer and say, is this answer even possible with the question I'm looking for? Is it possible to have half a car? No. And then you can look at your work and find your mistake. Now, example B. If a problem were to ask me to count the number of hours a light bulb is on in one day. So we have several answers. One answer is impossible. 3 answers are possible. I'll give you a minute to think about that and see if you can find the answer that's not possible to be correct. As I look at it, I can say, well, let's look at B, 4.5 hours. Oh, that's possible. C, 13 hours in a day. Yep, that's possible. A or D. Now 0. Could you have 0 hours? Maybe a room has been left dark for a day or a week. So yeah, it could be 0 hours. D, 25. 25 hours is impossible. If you think about it, it could be on for 25 hours straight, so that's not that's not the reason, but the reason being we're talking about how many hours in one day. So here we have it. It's impossible to count 25 hours in one day. Most students say, 0, you can't have 0 hours. Sure you could. If a room is left dark, the light never comes on, that would be zero hours in a day. But 25 hours is literally impossible to have that in one day. Let's move to the example C. Now C, okay. It talks about travel and traveling. I just had a summer trip. How many miles did I drive to this place and back? Which of these answers, A, B, C, or D, is entirely not possible or not reasonable? I could drive 50 miles, that's for sure. I could drive 10.5 miles. It's a short trip, but I can do it. 1.8 miles. That's extremely short. I wouldn't count that as a trip, but it can be done. It's reasonable. Now A, -10. Now we're talking about traveling now, and distance driven or traveled. We don't discuss traveling in negative miles. Now I know in football or in other sports you may talk about negative yards or from the line of scrimmage. You lost 5 yards, it's negative 5 yards, but we're traveling. So driving back and forth, flying back and forth, or whatnot. We don't use negative in that term. So that answer would be unreasonable. Now, if the problem were to say, how many yards did one football player get in a game? You could have negative yards in a game, but that's a different counting system. We're talking about traveling. We don't use negative answers in traveling. So I want you to use your gut and see if your answers make sense with the problem you're solving. I'll see you in the next vlog. Thank you.